Welcome. How is everyone doing? It is Wednesday, April 30th, 2025. This is the RambleCast. I'm your host, Cody Toombs, and with me I have Corbin Davenport.
Hello.
How you doing, buddy?
I am alive.
That
Um, I,
that is
I'm
a state.
alive, and I've got my new monitor, and yeah, that's about how it's going right now. Hello to Diablo in the chat, saying hello.
Yes. How's it going, Diablo? So, um, let's see. Before we get into any of the topics, just a quick announcement. The first public announcement. I'll throw this in Discord later. Um, it is official. I'm no longer with Android Police. Take a close look at my face. This is the face of somebody who is truly heartbroken over it, absolutely torn up. All right, moving on. Um, no, it's there have been good times at Android Police. There have been bad times. I'm not going to elaborate quite so precisely on what the recent times have been, but I mean, I think anyone can guess. Um, but I won't spend much on that. Um, let's see. Austin can't stay, but wanted to say hi. How's it going, man? Good you made it by at least. Sorry for starting late. um, sometimes unexpected things come up and you just kind of end up spending way too long having to deal with those. But anyway, speaking of um actually I have no good transition to that topic. So I guess let's just hop straight into the first thing, though. There's so little to say on this that I don't think we're gonna have much to do with it. Anyway, Google is planning a quote unquote big UI overhaul for Android. This overhaul, eh, I'm going to summarize this as simply as I can by saying uh it's borrowing a little bit of iOS 7 to for kind of the frosted glass look, and otherwise it's some pretty minor UI component tweaks. Um so Corbin, did you look into this already?
Um, yeah, a little bit. This is one of the things about UI that's always funny to me, where there's always a convergent there's always an element of convergent evolution. Like, these teams are just working independently, and sometimes the Android design people and the iOS design people end up in the same place just organically, and then sometimes there is the borrowing of design elements back and forth. And it is kind of funny that I think they are borrowing some from Apple, while Apple is rumored to be changing a lot of stuff for the upcoming iOS 19 update. I think that's what we're up to. Um, and although with that, it is supposedly going to be like this, like more frosted glass elements, but we don't know for sure yet. So it's mining up as a little bit of both again. But I don't know. I mean, I think the frosted glass stuff is fine. This is what Samsung has been doing for a while anyway with One UI, and that's how uh, most people outside of China use Android phones, is through Samsung's heavily customized versions.
Well,
So
Samsung and MyUI and
yeah,
um which does still show up quite a bit outside of China. Um, eh, and yeah, various Android implementations have had versions of this, either some sort of background blur or frosted glass effect or whatever you want to call it. Um,
yeah, yeah. And this is like very very early stuff, so like a lot of this could end up changing before it shows up in a Android update. but I don't think this is necessarily better or worse than what existed before. Some of the specific icons I think look a bit weird, but those are
The
things that could
battery
very
icon.
easily. Yeah, the battery icon reminds me of my Samsung Galaxy Player 5 running Android 2.3. But again, like all this could change. This is, you know, Michelle flipping flags that weren't meant to be flipped yet. So,
Yeah, a big part of me has wondered how much of these are placeholders that are
yeah.
literally just like we're gonna do something that's a certain way, but it's dissimilar to the old thing, so we want to change it to something different, and the different thing is just bad right now.
Yeah. And I mean, you can even see it. Like I kind of think in one of the pictures there's the brightness slider that kind of has that bar like with the extra padding around it separating the two sides. That feels very placeholdery to me. Um, and also some of the icons are different shapes than others, but yeah, not really sure yet. Again, I overall I don't think this is um, better or worse than what exists right now. I think I have not used an Android phone as my main phone for a while now, but I think my main issue with looking at Android's current UI, and also this is an issue on iPhone, is that they're not using screen space as efficiently as I feel like they could be. I know you do need to add more, padding and margin and bigger fonts on a lot of elements because the screens are bigger, and so the way people hold the phones is different than it used to be. So, I'm not expecting a return to like the Android 2.0 pixel density, which would mean you open your phone, there's like 30 notifications stacked up, all visible at once. We don't need to go that far. Um, but I feel like that they could be cramming in a little bit more on the screen than they do now. Um, iOS is far worse at that though. At least Android, when you open the notification tray, only a little bit of the screen is taken up by those quick settings toggles, while iOS is like, here's your like entire lock screen clock. We'll show you every time you pull the shade down for some reason. That frustrates me a lot.
Yeah, so the things that they changed here, cosmetically speaking, um, I'm 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 not gonna say I'm totally indifferent to it. I don't, but I mostly don't really care. Like the frosted glass aspect of it, the background blur, things like that. I'm not. I don't know. It just doesn't matter to me so much. Um, it's not that I don't care about the aesthetics. It's just I don't think it really is that big of a difference. Um, it's just sort of taking a little bit of what I guess Material U was, in the sense of like whatever your background was and whatever you had on your home screen, and it's just letting a little more of that shine through, which okay, fine, you know. And Mac OS has been like this. iPhones have been doing this for a long time. It's not really anything special. It's just tweaking for the sake of tweaking. Um, as far as the functionality and, like you mentioned, um, basically information density, I I don't feel like this changed that much.
No, it's almost
They
the same,
so in this,
at
like,
least for now.
there are little details where they did change little things. And the little things that they changed, for example, the settings app, um, they did a thing where like the title of a page is now part of basically the action bar, whereas it used to live below the back arrow and take up a bunch of screen space. Little things like this, good, fine, I guess. I don't see it as a big drawback that they had the titles, but I could also see why people would want to get rid of them. I think it's far more important that they did things like put section, like card section style separations, whereas in the current version, things like the lock display stuff, the title of a group looks almost like it's part of the group, and there's so little visible discerning trait that it's so much harder to parse with your eyes. The new version, it's better. And it should be better. Like, it's honestly, I did not like what the setting screen looked like for the last few years, and this new version will fix that, assuming this happens. And I don't see any reason it wouldn't happen, because this is just so much better. It's a small change, but it's better. But outside of that, meh. I don't know. And this is why I figured we wouldn't have a lot to say on this, because it's mostly minor changes that are just okay. They're things. But most of this stuff doesn't really have that much impact. And like the information density aspect of it, yes, they could do better. They could do more with it. They haven't. And that doesn't really bother me. And
Yeah,
I think
'cause you
it's also worth noting, this is all stuff that's very likely just going to be basically Pixel phones that are doing this, whereas you're probably not going to see anybody else adopting this, except I suppose OnePlus or somebody like that might. But
Yeah, like OnePlus, Motorola. I don't know how close nothing is to stock. I think
yeah,
they're kind of close.
no idea.
I don't know.
But yeah, that's the whole thing. If it's a quote unquote stock style of visual experience, they might adopt the same things. But otherwise, this is probably going to be basically a Pixel thing, because other companies have already done most of this stuff, or they have their own way of doing a particular thing. So I'm not sure that this is really that big of a deal, and I kind of don't agree with calling a lot of this Android, because it's really more Pixel, or at least that's kind of what it appears to be, because most of the changes discussed here are going to be to icons that are part of Pixel's theme, the system tray and settings app, both of which are Google's system tray and settings app, things that certainly Samsung and others have changed. And the effect, like the background blur and frosted glass effect, it's possible that specific implementation might make its way to other device manufacturers, but most of them make other changes on their own. So I don't think they're really going to change to copy Google. They might just use some of the things that Google puts into their kit, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Also, whatever Apple's gonna do is going to be interesting. We won't know that until June. When is WWDC? They already said the date.
It's June
9th
something.
to 13th. So that's when we'll know. Which, like, I'm not looking forward to watching WWDC, and I'm especially not looking for. I might not watch Google I/O. I don't think I can handle that right now, because it's not really important for my job anymore to watch those live. So I think I might just save myself the mental anguish and not, because last year was genuinely awful.
I would say the last few years, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, last year was so much worse. Like I think once I build up my my mental health a little bit more, where I can sustain another injury, I'll probably subject myself to last year's IO event again, so I could write about it because I wanted to write about it at the time, but I didn't get around to it, and I feel like it's getting to be about 1 year old would be a good time to revisit because that was truly atrocious. Where Google spent like I don't know how long, 2 hours on nonstop AI stuff, where they announced the infamous Google AI overviews, and then rolled it out like a week later, and it was telling everyone to eat rocks.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was just like a tech event for the ages. Like that's gonna that on the scales of ones that went poorly, that went very poorly.
But
Like
look,
I've now
hey,
watched every DCEU movie, and I would watch I think almost any of those again before I would watch that IO. I would watch The Flash again
hey
before this.
now, careful, careful with those words. I
Yeah.
haven't watched The Flash,
And
so I don't know.
and also well I meant the movie, but
Yeah,
and
and I
that
know.
to be clear, I'm not like trying to say anyone like any of the like presenters were bad or something. It was entirely what they were talking about for 2 hours.
Um,
Uh, except Sundar,
yeah.
as our previous discussions stated, he's not a good presenter, and I feel okay, kind of knocking him down a peg because I think he can take it. He's got enough money.
Well, I
I
don't
don't
even
think
think
he's
it's knocking him down a peg. I think it's just this is one of those things where just acknowledge it. Some people have good stage personality and presence. Other people don't.
no.
Honestly, I don't think he tries to have much of a stage presence. If he is trying and failing, well, sorry, Sundar. I did, it is what it is. But I get the impression that he feels more obligated to be up there because CEO.
Yeah.
It's just like Apple. Honestly, like Tim Cook has a better stage presence than Sundar, but he's still not he's not Steve Jobs.
Mhm.
And there are other people, honestly. Scott Forstall was better on stage than Tim Cook is. So is obviously Mr. Hair Force One himself, whose name is just right on the tip of my tongue.
Craig.
Yeah, Craig Federighi. Um, Craig obviously, like, his first time on stage was famously hilarious, as he was literally shaking, um, and like stumbling over his words, and you could tell sweating just a little more than he wanted to be. Um, and now the guy lives to be on stage, or at least he certainly puts forward that appearance. Sundar, um, like if you're not either afraid of being on stage to the point that you feel that way, or you live to be on stage, if you're not one of those two, chances are you just don't care. And if you don't care, find somebody else. That's it. That's what we're getting at. And which, to be fair, at least last year, as I recall, Sundar did spend a lot less time on stage. But it'd be better if he spent even less. Sorry, dude.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. Um,
Yeah. Again, I'll return to my theory that I think every tech company should have like a shared guy that does events, like the proposal to have every Olympic Games in the same sort of neutral location to save on all the infrastructure costs. Just like a guy that we all, like every commercial for a movie trailer had the guy that does the voice.
the
It's,
movie,
it's
the movie voice,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly like that.
In a world dominated by tech CEOs, one man.
Uh,
I don't have a finish for that.
One man doesn't want to watch people I owe.
One man turns off his TV.
Yeah, going to bed.
Yeah.
So Yeah, that's
Um,
our brief look at the new Android UI thus far. See what Google does, but again, like most people are experiencing Android through the heavily filtered interface of Samsung or Huawei or Xiaomi. So unclear what real impact this would have. Um, so yeah,
yeah. Well, moving on to another tech CEO who has given us um, given us a roller coaster in the short time that he's been around. Intel CEO Lip Bhutan. Did I get that? Yeah, cool. I got that. It's it's weird to me. I've I never really remembered the previous CEO's name. Like I could hear it 10 times in a row and I'd forget it a minute later. But somehow Lip Bhutan, dude, you got a memorable name. Congrats.
some people got a memorable face, some people got a memorable name. It
Exactly.
just happens.
So we've already heard Intel's going to be laying off some people. Um, and the estimates are it's going to be somewhere around 20%. Well, Lip Bhutan has basically come out with a little more clarity while still being incredibly vague, basically saying that they intend to restructure the company to reduce, quote, unnecessary bureaucracy. So, um, the let's see.
So that means he's getting another job, right? That's what they're cutting, unnecessary middle management and executives.
Yeah, that wouldn't that be nice? So apparently the goal is, or well, they have a few goals in mind. One, they're going to focus a lot more on AI. Shocking. I know none of us saw that. Literally nobody saw that coming. But they are apparently going to restructure around basically building future chips to be more AI oriented. I honestly like I get that. That's fine. Um and part of their restructuring is going to be removing um where's the quote? Okay, so one he said many of the changes we will be driving are designed to make engineers more productive by removing burdensome workflows and processes that slow down the pace of innovation. All right. Now, I happen to agree with this. I hate agreeing with it in some instances. I suspect it'll be regrettable to agree with this, but he went on to say something about too much valuable time is being wasted, and effectively, this is the notion of let's get rid of middle managers, and the people who are involved in the projects are going to take more ownership of making decisions for projects. This, having worked in companies where there is too much middle management, again, I'm no longer with Android Police. Uh, yeah. Look, if you have middle managers whose whole job is to just kind of be in the way and their purpose is to basically spend a whole day finding a reason or a purpose for them to exist. Yeah, get rid of those. I'm in favor of that. It's hard not to be in favor of that. Most people, I think, agree, except for the aforementioned middle managers. But I find myself also looking at a lot of Lip Bhutan's comments and a lot of the strategy and wondering, is this really for sure the right choice here? Are you really doing the good thing? I mean, could you, first off, could you have done this without firing some of the people? Like maybe find new ways to reposition more of the people?
Right.
But two, is this even actually going to make anything more efficient? Um, because in many instances, and this I've also seen at companies, if you give individual groups too much leeway and you don't have a so-called middle manager, sometimes the groups themselves basically kind of run wild. So, I mean, I've always seen this as the type of thing that it should be done on a case-by-case basis. Basically experiment with seeing how well a group can function more or less on its own, being, hyper efficient, having fewer meetings, having shorter meetings. And if it's not going to work out, then yes, stick a middle manager in there to spend their day basically nagging them and pressuring them to try to do better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. In theory that's good. But I also don't. I'm not really sure I buy that when also, I guess we'll get to it in a second, but they're planning to lay off around 20%
Yeah.
of staff.
Well, that's kind of what the rumor is. It's as far as I know, that number is not confirmed.
Yeah. Which, to me that changes. Like if you want to come out and say like our company setup needs to change because what we're doing isn't working, I think that's reasonable. But you can do that while moving people to into different teams where maybe they're more useful instead of just kind of showing the door. And I think when you have a number in your head, like reportedly 20%, I think the one of the best justifications you can come up with for that is like, oh, we're just eliminating waste.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what we keep hearing with the federal government. So I don't really. I don't know if I buy that that's the reason. I think this is just normal corporate stuff where you're like, all right, we need the stock price to stay up. What can we do again? All right, more layoffs. What's a good round number, boys? 20%? I like it. Ship it.
Yep. If you need to pump the stocks, this is how you do it.
And on top of that, great way to really make all your employees feel valued and important by being like, hey, we might lay off a lot of people. You won't know if you're effective for a while, though. So, just keep that in mind. Maybe try to do a good job. Prove that you're worthy. It's really cool.
So with all that said, though, I feel like also throwing in, let's see, what was the date on this? April 25th was that.
Diablo said Intel be like, we want to be cool like ARM, but we can't. Yeah, ARM being non-American.
Yeah. Okay, so I feel like it's worth pointing this out. Here is Intel's stock price over the last week. I'm showing this on the screen right now. You'll notice that on April 24th, it closed out the day at a nice $21.48 per share. Friday morning, after this announcement, it had dropped about 8%. That's a pretty steep tumble. And yes, over the next several days, it did rise back up and then proceed to crash back down again just yesterday. But yeah, I don't think that they succeeded. Like if you're gonna fire people to get a stock boost, you should actually get the stock boost. And this is not looking like the stock market bought into it, which that's kind of unusual. We're so used to just all you have to do is say we're firing people and your stock goes up. if Intel's in a bad enough place that you say you're firing people and they're like, yeah, no, you just keep your employees. We just don't buy it anymore. That's a problem. That really means that nobody respects your company's value at this stage. I dare say Intel is approaching meme stock status.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just I'm tired. I don't I don't know how many more of these 20% layoffs at like the biggest employers in the country can happen before it all just falls apart. Um,
I believe
I
it
don't.
has all already fallen apart, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming Intel is one of the biggest employers, but I don't actually know.
Oh no. I mean, well, it depends on how you're defining it. But no, Intel's actually. I mean, they're not a tiny employer, not by a long shot, but if it like at present, they have purportedly somewhere around 100,000 employees.
Oh, there is a Wikipedia article of a list of largest United States-based employers globally, which would be, everyone who works for them, not necessarily in the United States.
Correct.
But yeah, well, number one is Walmart.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and then Amazon, and then Allied Universal, which is a private security company. That's good. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
That's good. And then FedEx and UPS. Yeah, the usual suspects. Intel's not even on here.
Yeah, that's kind of the point. And do they show the numbers for those?
They do. I'll put this in the YouTube chat also.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably.
Although there is a warning on here from August 2022 that it needs additional citations for verification. So I don't know how up to date this is.
So yeah, out of the top 28 list, the lowest one on that is Bank of America at 212,000, which is roughly double what Intel's employment base is. So, and you got to figure that the numbers there's probably a lot more companies packed in. Like it probably doesn't drop from 200,000 to 100,000 quickly. I'm guessing probably dozens of companies that start slipping in between individual, like every couple thousand or so. And yeah, Home Depot being on there is a little surprising.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't even know, like, is Home Depot a national chain? Because it's my impression they're kind of more localized in the South, because I know their headquarters is in Georgia.
Well, we have a bunch of them here, so it's definitely not just the South. They were all over Las Vegas, and there's a Home Depot and a Lowe's practically right next to each other in my little town. So, yeah, I think Home Depot is pretty much countrywide, very spread out at this stage. If nothing else, actually, I was surprised that Home Depot and Lowe's. I mean, Lowe's is on the list, but I expected Lowe's to be closer to Home Depot. And that's a pretty significant separation. Home Depot is a full 50% larger.
I went to Lowe's a couple days ago because the like metal screws that were holding the license plate to my car were rusting, which I'm not sure if they were supposed to do that, but I was kind of worried at some point they might just like fall apart and drive somewhere and be like, where'd my license plate go? So went in and got some replacements, and they worked.
Nice.
This is the extent of what I can do at Lowe's as a non-homeowner. I'm not doing any big projects. I'm getting some very basic things there.
Indeed. So, Carson, welcome back from Japan.
Hello.
Glad you made it back safe and sound. And out of curiosity, how much in tariffs did they charge you to re-enter the country?
Mm.
Um, and I don't mean on the things that you brought back. I mean for you yourself, because after all, everything now gets tariffed.
Yeah, I almost said red paint for a red bench. The bench is not mine. It's at my mom's house now. So
The
it'd
re-
be up to them to
One of these
repaint it.
days, you will reclaim the bench.
The famous bench. Um, I did take another picture at the bench. I had to work on an article when I was over for the holidays, so I took a couple for that. It's like for a car charger. 10% to enter.
Um, that 10% base for everybody. Um,
I actually, fun fact, yesterday finally got approved for my passport. So I'm getting that soon. I had a passport when I was younger, and I let it expire. So I had to go through more steps to get a new one. But finally getting that, so that's good. Good thing my Canadian-based employer never asked me before now to go to headquarters or somewhere international. They still have it, but I don't. That's something I don't have to worry about if they ever so choose to. And hopefully do like a cool international trip at some point. Not sure where yet. Also importantly, that's gonna be my real ID for a while. If that deadline doesn't change and you need a real ID for all flights in the United States, I'm just gonna use that because North Carolina's DMV right now is not functioning whatsoever. It's real bad over here. That's like the one that and most of education are the things that North Carolina really likes to like not fund. Um, so yeah, I don't really want to like go try to get an appointment for like 2 months from now at 4 a.m. somewhere. So this was a little bit easier.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
So,
And Carson said bound and return to office. Yeah, return to the Canada office.
oh man, can you imagine the import? How many
Uh,
people that be importing? And
I'm
the majority probably not crossing the U.S. Canada border.
Yeah, and the office just turns into those uh double decker couches from the Lego movie.
Oh
Everyone has to
no.
work on those. Too many people. I mean, look, if if they could give me a visa to move to Canada, I'd consider it because Canada's looking a little bit better. Gonna be honest. Gonna be real.
Yeah, recent elections prove there's still hope for Canada.
Yeah, there's still time. It's for now they're fine.
Oh,
Uh,
we're dancing on a fine line, but
yeah.
we
Speaking of uh, mm, concerning things, I guess. Um,
which thing did you want to go to with that?
well, the next one, which
Okay.
is Windows updates. So you may recall last year when Microsoft revealed the first Copilot Plus Windows PCs, and the headline feature was this thing called Recall, which uh, takes periodic screenshots, like once every couple seconds, and scans it with an on-device AI model to try to figure out kind of what you were doing in the context of the windows you have open, and then gives you a timeline you can scroll through and you can search. Be like, I know I was talking to someone about this work meeting, but I can't remember which of my 15 messenger apps that was in. You can just kind of type in the search bar in Windows, be like, oh yeah, I scanned your screen with that in this app 4 hours ago. Here you go. So kind of an interesting way to make PCs more you know,
More similar to
searchable and
spyware.
indexable, right? Kind of coming at it from a different perspective than Apple with Spotlight, where Spotlight like tries its hardest to use all of the metadata and files to build this big search database and like tries to plug into some apps and it doesn't really work all that well. And then Microsoft is just kind of skipping that and be like, what if we just scanned your screen all the time and built our own database? So kind of interesting approach. The problem was that it was like the worst implementation that was possible. Um, People who got a hold of it early proved that like it wasn't encrypting or like separating the place where it was storing screenshots and the scanned information. So, you know, if you get malware that could read it and it's like, oh great, the malware knows what you've been doing on your computer for the past month. And or if you someone gets access to your PC, they could do that. Um, and it also wasn't really clear if that would be enabled by default, which is kind of bad. Microsoft was telling some people that it wasn't, and some other people that it was, and it notably like didn't go through all of the Windows Insider channel testing that everything else in Windows goes through. That's why none of this was, caught before they announced it. So, yeah, and also the question of like what's getting uploaded to the cloud, if anything, that was a big one, obviously. Um, so, didn't go well. Like this totally exploded on them, um, and rightfully so. Like it's shocking that they almost rolled this out. They thought this was okay. So a little bit later, they said like, "Oh, we're gonna delay it, but it'll still roll out on time," and then it didn't. And then they kept delaying it, and then it finally showed up in the insider builds in like November. This is for something that was supposed to roll out in July, I believe. And now it's finally rolling out. So if you have a Copilot Plus PC, I think it's still limited to the Snapdragon PCs. I'm not sure if this is on the Intel and AMD chips with the NPUs yet. I'm not sure, but it is now rolling out, so it works the same as when it was announced, where it will just scan your screen and give you a search bar. You can search for stuff, and they say that they have listened to all the people who were screaming about how bad this was, and they've made all the important changes. So this is supposedly now super encrypted. Nothing except Windows can look at this, which I don't know how that wasn't there from the start. That's crazy. But supposedly nothing can get into this. They added Windows. They locked this behind Windows Hello. So like to open it, even I believe you need your fingerprint or your face scan or whatever. So no one else can like hop onto the computer after you left and look at your entire history. And they claim all of this is being processed on device. Like nothing at all is going to the cloud. I don't I don't know. I feel like it should be, just because the infrastructure required to like constantly send screenshots to the cloud and process them and back for the millions of PCs this would be on potentially would be a lot, but I don't know. And they claim that none of this data is shared with Microsoft or third parties. So and also, again, they say this is opt-in, and they also added it as a system component that you can like fully purge from your computer if you want to do that. My big question here is, how long will it stay opt-in? Because Microsoft now has a long history of making a feature optional until it really needs more market share for that feature, and then it will, quietly turn itself on. So, don't know how long that's going to be the case. Also, this is still limited to Copilot Plus PC, so if you're like, I don't want to go anywhere near this, and you don't have one of those computers, good, you don't have to worry about it. Um, and yes, that's recall, and then they're also rolling out two smaller things. They have a feature called Click to Do that has also been in testing where you can um, uh, you use the keyboard shortcut, or you hold down the Windows key while clicking, and it'll kind of scan the screen and try to give you like the ability to select text on your screen that might not be selectable, like if it's in an image or something. And then they're also adding semantic search to the start menu and file explorer. So the idea is like the demo they showed is if you search for where was it? Yeah, the demo they have is searching for mountains, and it brings up a PowerPoint presentation that doesn't include mountains in the file name, but it has like pictures of mountains in the presentation. So kind of that contextual thing that also Spotlight on Mac can kind of do sometimes with images, but not perfectly. So um, yeah, that's all of the Copilot Plus stuff coming out, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. Also interesting that I know I saw someone talking about would this always be limited to the Copilot Plus PCs, because if you have like a desktop computer with a reasonable GPU, like all this stuff could also run on that instead of the NPU. I I feel like they're probably not gonna flip the switch on that unless it's something that benefits them more. Just because if they roll this out for, if they update all these AI models to run the GPU, if your computer doesn't have a TPU, then they get a bunch of headlines. It's like Windows 11 update makes all of your games slower because it's now using that GPU to, scan your desktop constantly. Um, and also, I think they want another reason for people to buy Copilot Plus PCs. So, and yeah, David said, or is it like the Outlook app? You can remove it, but it'll reinstall in the next update. Yeah, maybe. Doesn't sound like it's going to do that right now, but you never know. You never know with Microsoft.
I didn't I didn't put it into the list of topics, but it's funny because I just saw the headline for an article that basically asserted a bunch of people were polled, and chat or Copilot was basically found to not be very popular, and most people are still making a point of choosing ChatGPT, which kind of helps to bury this whole situation, and sort of reveals that if Copilot's not popular enough now when it's kind of being shoved down people's throats, um, I'm kind of curious how it's going to be when it's even more shoved and possibly not, still not accessible to a lot of people, and certainly not going to be much better.
Yeah, I mean, it's still really funny that the branding on these is for Copilot, like specifically the chatbot. Like that's kind of the main interface for this still, and the chatbot is still running the cloud. It's still just a web app. So that part's kind of funny. Um, Diablo said, "Would y'all use it?" Um, I, I think I would leave it on if I was using Windows, more often. If what they're saying about the current implementation is true, I don't think I'd really have a problem with it. The one thing that I did notice was an issue before, and I don't know if it's fully resolved, is Recall doesn't always understand which windows should be excluded from scanning. So, there were some demos of like opening like your password manager and it started like trying to index stuff in there. Or, if you go to like some certain websites, it might try to guess what's on the screen and give you weird results if you try to search for something. Um, So I know they were like adding exclusions and APIs and stuff to fix some of that, but I don't know how well that's working at this point. So that'd be the main thing that might cause it to go haywire.
Hmm.
And yeah, David said doesn't want to use Windows Hello, but otherwise it'd be indifferent to it. Yeah, I still don't have like any way of using Windows Hello on a desktop. I know there's some webcams you can get that have it integrated, but of course I'm still on my tried and true Logitech webcam that everyone bought 10 years ago. Um, so that doesn't do it.
Indeed.
Uh, Diablo said, "Oh, true. They should have like screenshot protection." Well, they do if you're watching DRM content in a web browser. That's blocked by screenshots and or screenshots can't capture that in Windows. And I know they were like trying to bring that same thing to other use cases, but again, I don't know if that's fully working. So, but yeah, and also in this blog post, it is kind of funny that they're really, really not beating the allegations of the Windows 10 shutdown being unnecessary. Because every time they talk about Windows 11 now or these Copilot Plus PCs, there's a section in these blog posts. It's like, by the way, guys, Windows 10 is about to end support. Don't you want to get a shiny new Copilot Plus PC? And I mean, this one right here does say, literally says, quote, as Windows 10 reaches end of support on October 14th, 2025, now is the time to upgrade to a modern, more secure Windows 11 or Copilot Plus PC. I don't know why it's or. After this date, Windows 10 PCs will no longer receive security or feature updates. They, of course, neglected to mention that they could if you want to pay the $10 or whatever it is. Copilot Plus PCs offer incredible value with turbocharged performance, all-day battery life, and next-gen AI features, making right now the smartest time to buy a new PC. And then they list a bunch of retailers. So that part's kind of icky to me. I feel like that's really still seems like a fake transition, and that's gonna make millions of PCs very insecure come October. Um, the malware devs are gonna be eating good for years to come.
The common Windows experience.
A lot of people are not gonna know or care to upgrade. I know for a fact that if I hadn't upgraded my brother's PC to Windows 11 while I had him over, it wouldn't have happened. He would have still using 10. And I'm sure that's true for a lot of people.
Most likely, yeah. And look, I kind of get that. I'm not about to praise 10 at any point, but it obviously wasn't that bad. And anytime you move somebody's cheese, frankly, you're going to get pushback. So, it makes some sense that people don't exactly want to hop up and switch to a new version.
Well, in his case, he literally couldn't because his PC wasn't officially supported. So a lot of people in that boat as well. So that's going to be a really fun thing that happens later this year. It's just Microsoft deciding millions of people are not worthy of security updates anymore for not really a good reason.
Yeah, true. But things that are happening for a good reason. Yes, I'm just going to totally hijack it and jump to the breaking news. A judge just ordered Apple to cease charging the 27% commission on in-app purchases made outside of the App Store. So, how much will this affect individual users? Who knows? But it certainly is a big effect for developers. The judge Yvonne Gonzalez Rogers ordered that effective immediately. And by the way, this is part of the Epic Games lawsuit with Apple. Effective immediately, Apple can no longer charge 27% on on App Store purchases made outside of the App Store. This was, of course, Apple's big middle finger to that judge and a few others who all had previously said, hey, you're not really playing fair. We want you to change some of your practices. And they gave Apple a few orders. Ironically, one of them was not that it never said they couldn't charge something for outside, but Apple's insistence on charging 27%, very specifically, like 3% is kind of that common transaction fee territory. So Apple was charging a whole extra 27% just to pressure people into using Apple services instead. Well, yeah, that's presumably over. Now, this article doesn't mention anything about the possibility of appeals. I don't know what the processes are going to be here. I'm assuming Apple isn't done fighting this, and I wouldn't be surprised if Apple has some sort of contingency plan to drag things out even further. But in the meantime, it looks like things are finally going to be good or better for developers that aren't part of Apple's specific ecosystem, or that don't want all of their charges to go through Apple's ecosystem. Now, whether they're doing that to save money or, well, to avoid giving Apple more money than it needs, or if there's another thing going on, I don't know. But I'm going to count this as a big win. If for no other reason, then this means that a lot more people will soon be able to make purchases through in-app purchase in apps, and the companies won't have to artificially raise their prices to compensate.
Yeah, I mean, this is good. I wish they would have somehow worked into this that Apple has to allow apps from outside the App Store, but that's, I guess, wishing for too much here. But yeah, I mean, it's good. That was always this was the thing I ran into with PhotoStack when I tried to have a version of my PhotoStack web app on the Google Play Store. I never published it on Apple, but there was a version on the Play Store that was like a web wrapper that I made just to get to show up in search results for photo editor on Android phones. And the main annoying thing there was that I had to add extra behavior to turn off the ads and all mention of donations and a donate link for the Play Store, because that wasn't going through Google's, the in-app purchase system for payments. Because I don't even think there was a way to hook that up with like their web wrapper stuff. But even if there was, I wouldn't have really cared to do that anyway. So I just had to hit hide all those menus and links. So it's always been dumb.
Mm-hmm. So
and now PhotoStack is not on the Google Play Store at all, because Google was like, oh, if you want to publish apps here now, we need an address.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not about to dox myself that easily. I know it's still very easy, because the United States doesn't really function well. We don't have privacy rights, but I'm not going to put it on a public app store listing so I can maybe get a few more users on my web apps. No thank you.
Yep. So fully agreed there. Also, as part of this ruling, Apple cannot try to discourage people from using outside payment options. So, in other words, they can't require that developers include scary text. They can't pressure developers into discouraging it, and I'm sure Apple is allowed in some way, shape, or form, or will find a loophole that allows them skirt this rule or pressure developers into staying on Apple's charge system as opposed to setting up their own. But hey, we're seeing very good steps in the right direction, so I'm not going to complain.
I would like external apps though.
Oh God, yes. I don't even have an iPhone, and I think the fact there's no external apps is absolutely insane.
I have nothing else.
Yeah, me neither. So, speaking of insane, oh boy. Speaking of insane, I think we have to at least acknowledge the crazy situation that came up with tariffs and Amazon. So for those who somehow may have missed this story, let's call it a rumor circulated that Amazon was going to add a basically like a listing for what the tariffs would be on anything ordered through the website, particularly their low cost website. I forget what the name of that was.
Well, according to them, I don't know how much you want to believe them, but according to them, this was a added listed charge just for their Temu competitor, Amazon Hall.
Okay.
So, according to them, it was never even being considered for their like actual Amazon store and web app. Now, maybe they said that to like, make people shut up and stop freaking out, but that's what they claim.
Okay. Well, either way. So the thing is, obviously this wouldn't necessarily be the most hospitable way of treating a current president's strategies, we'll say. But given who our current president is, and given who his lackeys are, this sparked some ire. Actually, great rage, as the rumors suggest. And Trump himself called up Mr. Bezos and said, "Nah, you can't do this because we don't like." And as reported, Bezos removed his lips from the knob, but no, I'm mocking a billionaire, so I'm gonna insist that this is okay. But Bezos apparently bent the knee and declared they will not show any mention of tariffs anywhere in their product listings, prices, or anything like that. So all I can really say is Bezos cowered. Trump is now approaching actual proper dictator. And most importantly, we had a company that was about to actually show people some relevant information, which would have been true, factual, and legitimate. And instead, they were convinced to hide it, which the only thing I can think of to describe this is it's gaslighting. They are gaslighting the American public. They are hiding the negative effects of a
Well, I think I don't know exactly what it was, but I think some Trump administration person was like, yeah, Amazon should just eat it. They should eat the difference because they have a lot of money.
That's not how it works.
That's not how it works. Like if you think the billionaires should be taxed, I can get behind that. But that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about like, oh, we should be able to do kind of just like whatever, and also if you talk about it, we'll yell at you and wipe your company from existence.
Yeah. It's really a pretty stark. Go ahead.
Again, like this very funny thing where in America, we're allowed to do line item separations between the base cost of a product and the sales tax of the product, while a lot of other countries don't do that because it doesn't actually make sense. Like the thing just costs what it costs, but we do it separately here. So every time you buy something, it's like, oh, it's actually like 5 or 8% more, actually, just for fun. Bet you weren't expecting that. But we're not allowed to do that for tariff tax.
Yeah.
That must be factored into the base price. You are not allowed to acknowledge that it exists.
Well, Corbin, that's because someone else is paying for it.
Yeah.
The other country is paying for the tariff, not us. That's not at all how tariffs work.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to like joke around about this because really every time something like this happens, it's always not Jeff Bezos is gonna suffer.
Right.
It's gonna be more layoffs, more everything costs way more than it should. But I do find a little bit of joy in the fact that Jeff Bezos and Tim Cook and Sundar and all the other CEOs who gave him a bunch of money and kissed his ass for I don't however many times are now also getting the rough end. So get what you pay for apparently.
Yep. Well, hey, that's the deal with extortion.
We've firmly reached the find out stage, for better and for worse.
Pretty much the truth.
The better is that Elon is losing a lot of money. He's taking us all down with him, but that's nice.
Well, for what it's worth, it seems like he's losing more money than we are, so that's a plus.
That's true.
So yeah, I can see just no way to look at this in a particularly positive light, because at a bare minimum, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to include this information. If that's what a company chooses to do, they should be able to do that. It would be insane to tell them not to. But here we are. The actual insane is happening.
Because this already exists. Like some stores already do this. They just factored into like shipping.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like the shipping cost on the line item for shipping is like, yeah, it's the actual cost of moving the thing from one place to another, but it's also like whatever it costs to go through customs, or just sometimes it's just made up. They just like they shift every like TV infomercial ever that's like $9.99 plus shipping and handling, right? The shipping is just like whatever more profit margin they want. They can just make up a number. So like we already do this, but it's because it's as soon as it's like at all obvious and to the detriment of the current administration, it's a problem. So
yeah, and other companies have already been showing or plan to show tariffs. Like, this isn't even, Amazon would not be the first to do this. So it's kind of made worse by the fact that you've got a whole company, indisputably, that it would not be doing anything original or new here. But because of their size, and presumably because they've already bent the knee to the current administration, the administration knows that they can get away with bullying them and telling them what to do. And it's working.
Yeah. So on that backdrop, Amazon announced that Prime Day is coming back this July. So get ready for Capitalism Month once again. They didn't say when in July. I believe last year was around July 20th or something like that. So probably something like that. This is going to be a lot more interesting. If if the tariff situation continues to be changing in ways that no one can predict, like it is right now, or just something else happens that makes it difficult to, conduct a mass, sale event and all of the infrastructure and costs associated with that. Um, gonna be very interesting, and I think there's gonna be at least there. So every time a sale happen, like one of these big sales happens, there's always a ton of companies that do fake discounts, right? They'll like raise up the original price and then like make up a new discount, and that's it says it's 20% off, but actually it's the same price it's been for 6 months, or it was actually 40% off last week. This stuff always happens. I feel like there's going to be a lot more of that this time around. There's going to be a lot more shenanigans with MSRPs and discounts, and I'm also interested in knowing how this gets spun afterwards, because there was a big. I'm gonna get this wrong, but so I need to look it up. But um, what was the? It wasn't consumer confidence. It was like it wasn't it the GDP report that came out earlier today.
Oh, I don't know.
Uh, G, gross domestic product. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So earlier today, I'll put this in the YouTube chat. Um, the report came out that the gross domestic product of the United States of America fell 0.3% year over year in the first 3 months of 2025, which was kind of when all the tariff shenanigans started. So that's dropping, and every like consumer confidence report right now is super low. Like people are just like not buying that kind of stuff right now if they can avoid it, because yeah, everything's getting more expensive, and there's a lot of are we in a recession, are we not? So that is generally bad if you're Amazon and you need people to buy a bunch of like Fire tablets they don't need in 2 months.
So it's kind of like the Fire Festival. Absolutely no one wants to spend money on this anymore.
Yeah. So I'm, but on the other side, maybe there's people who are like holding out specifically for events like this because that's how these usually work. So I don't know. I think it's going to be very interesting, and interesting how Amazon spends it, because I do really like over analyzing the press releases they do after these events, where they have very specific stats they want to pull, like this was the biggest Prime Day ever, but like if sales for this one are lower, what can they say? And also how they play it in all their investor meetings or whatever. So I'm very interested in how this goes. I think it'd be very funny if there was like a sudden change to the tariffs and this ends up like just completely falling apart before it's supposed to start. I think that'd be really funny.
Well, I'm sure it comes down to whether or not Bezos pays the protection money.
Yeah. So
who knows? Trump could, if enough money gets paid, Trump could instigate reverse tariffs. They'll pay you to import stuff.
Diablo said he thought I was going to say mass riot or boycott. I mean, I think the like 200% price increases on Temu might start boycotts, if it goes on long enough. People really like their extremely cheap things.
Yes, they're random costume jewelry and lead-lined silverware.
Yep. The American dream.
I mean, what does it mean to be American if you don't have at least a little lead in your diet?
It's good for your character.
Yes. Kind of like brain worms. All right. So, I think we're done beating up on the billionaires there. So let's beat up on a company that I assume is run by a millionaire.
More corporate America, yeah.
Yeah.
So you might have heard of Backblaze before. The reason I know about them, and I think most people like on a like a normal consumer level would know about them, is that they have a cloud PC backup service. So they have a little app you run on your computer, and it backs up all your files to their servers. So if your computer gets broken or whatever, you can get all your files back. And it's kind of a different use case than like cloud storage. Cloud storage really isn't like backup. It's not really intended for that. It's synchronization, which is different. So, their product there is kind of it has a pretty good reputation, but in the past few years they've focused more on like enterprise server stuff, which I didn't know about. Apparently, they have like Amazon S3 storage clone. They have some other enterprise solutions. So they're increasingly more business to business instead of business to consumer. But there was a report. Hold on, let me find it. Yeah. So there's a report that came out from this investment firm called Morpheus Research, which I had not heard of before, but apparently it is staffed by some former Hindenburg research people. Hindenburg being the short seller firm that made pretty good reports about um, what was that EV company, Nikola. They made a report about Nikola that basically like burned them. They did a really good report about Opera a couple years ago. Basically, just a company that like researches really shady companies, and then if they find a bunch of shady stuff, they will short the stock and then tell everyone about it, so they get an immediate profit. So, none of these guys are like an impartial party to the end of this, but like in a lot of the cases with these other firms, there's enough public data to kind of corroborate what they're saying. Again, I'm not familiar with this one specifically, but Morpheus did a report that was basically just pointing out a lot of weird corporate stuff that Black Backblaze is doing. Wow, my brain is dying. Basically, just kind of normal uh, public company stuff where Backblaze went public, and then pretty soon after that, like all the founder people started mass selling off their stocks because they want, payday. I don't know. I've seen some comments that were kind of like, this isn't really uncommon with these kinds of companies. It's just that like all the founders are very open and blatant about cashing out as quickly as possible before the company has a chance to, ruin itself. But there's a lot of stuff about that, a lot of stuff about how maybe doing like investor fraud, like kind of lying about stuff in financial reports. I don't really care much about Backblaze investors. It's not, poor, won't someone think of the poor shareholders? The part that was relevant to me is they talk a lot about how Backblaze has not made a profit since it went public, which was in 2021, November 2021. Its outstanding share count has grown by 80%, and its share price has declined by 71%. And they're making like less profit each quarter. Like it's generally not going well over there. And they have done some, shaking up some executive people. One thing, the funniest thing in here actually is that they're, let me find the exact. They say after the exit of CFO Frank Patchell in August 2024, CFO being the chief financial officer, one might have expected Backblaze to bring in a CFO with a track record of turning around poorly performing companies. Instead, Backblaze's new CFO, Mark Soiden, joined from Beachbody, a multi-level marketing company, where he was CFO from May 2022 to August 2024. During his tenure, Beachbody missed earnings estimates in 6 out of 9 quarters, and the stock fell 91%. So they got a multi-level marketing health company guy to be their CFO for which is
And
really funny.
not only did they get a guy to be their CFO from an actual known scam, but they got one who failed at that place.
Yeah, yeah,
And
like you can't
notably,
even.
Beachbody has had other controversies about other bad business practices. It's not just about their basically failing company and the fact that it's a MLM, but they've actually had other controversies about other issues, kind of like what Backblaze was accused of.
Yeah, and Beachbody is not an MLM anymore because they finally hit that point that a lot of MLMs get to, where like you run out of like downline people to recruit,
Uh-huh.
and the entire financial like part just like stops working. So they have to be like, all right, we're not doing that anymore. Sorry.
Time to pretend to
So
be legitimate.
yeah, yeah. So they always switch to like just like direct affiliate marketing. Um, so all the people at the top of the pyramid are very not happy about that.
Also, I
Um,
kind of feel like just calling out. Look, I know if you're reasonably skilled and whatever, you don't exactly have to go from one company of a certain type to another company of the same type. But for a backup company to take someone who formerly ran a company, or well, was CFO at a company that made DVD workout videos and some random gear and equipment, and these two things don't feel like they really go together. Like, it's odd that they're both on his resume. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, I think there is something in there about how like with like these executive people, it doesn't really matter like what they're what they do.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of like, are you the guy that can extract profit? Okay, good. Come on over. We'll
Yeah.
find a place for you. It's a very very funny thing at these C levels. Um, but yeah, so
Most
there's
of
a
these
bunch
people
of
should be below sea level.
yeah. So there's a bunch of like alleged financial crimes in here that I don't really care about. It's mostly just focused on them potentially lying to investors about how much money they have. The main reason I ended up writing an article about this for How to Geek and why it maybe matters for normal people is if Backblaze is like running out of money, then I don't know what happens to backups. Right.
Indeed.
If Backblaze suddenly closes its doors one day, I don't know, your backups might be gone. That seems not good. It ideally
Or
it
even
wouldn't
worse,
be
they
the
might
end of
start thinking about what they could do with that data.
right. Yeah. Um, and that would be the only thing that would be like really bad because if they just kind of collapse into nothingness, it shouldn't be the end of the world because their consumer service is backup, so you should still have the primary thing you were backing up. You just have to find a new backup provider, and hope your computer doesn't explode uh, in the meantime.
Um, this is all true, but I would certainly also raise the question of what happens to the hard drives and servers where your data was stored. Someone eventually will buy that stuff and or move it somewhere or collect it, claim it, whatever. And unless those drives are securely wiped, you never know what people might be getting. Actually, well,
Yeah.
some people certainly would know. They know they know what they're backing up, but a lot of people I think really wouldn't.
Yeah. So yeah, if you have Backblaze, maybe look into other backup options because I wouldn't feel overly confident in the safety of my data with them. At least until they start showing that like they're capable of making money. And
Mm-hmm.
like this is another thing I did briefly mention in my article because this is like a very dumb thing that you wouldn't expect to work this way, but this is just how our This is just how capitalism is set up now, where a company can exist for years and years and years and lose a shit ton of money, and it doesn't really matter, as long as they can keep convincing investors that they will eventually be profitable. Right? Like it took Uber over a decade to turn a profit, but they continued functioning that whole time because they were able to convince people that they would. Um, but I don't know if that would happen in Backblaze's case. Um,
So, in fairness, most companies lose money when they're starting up. So,
yes.
you know, that I believe me, I know what you're saying. The idea that you've got a multi-million dollar company doing a particular thing and it's hemorrhaging money is a different thing from, well, I'll use the worst example of this, but it's a completely different thing from someone who starts a restaurant, and restaurants famously never make it into the black for like the first 3 years. Like, that's a thing. It happens. But how much money are they losing while they're trying to make it into the black? Realistically, most restaurants are losing tiny amounts, relatively speaking. Like, they're not hemorrhaging money. They're just probably a little short of breaking even at most stages. So there is a big difference between these two. And I don't know how bad Backblaze's books looked. I couldn't begin to guess how much they were losing each quarter. But if it's more than a trivial amount, that's generally pretty bad.
Yeah, and their losses are, there is like a wave. It's not consistent, but their losses have gotten bigger since going public, which is not good. That's usually not how it works, or there's like generally some kind of plan to get to a profitable point, but they're not really doing that because their CFO is in an MLM.
Mm-hmm.
So
Almost makes you wonder if they're making their employees like pay for service or something.
yeah, yeah, they're throwing they're going to their family members, be like, hey, have you heard of this cool thing called Backblaze? I can get you in. And the Backblaze did eventually do a public statement about this. They said the report is inaccurate and misleading, based largely on litigation of the same nature and a clear attempt by short sellers to manipulate our stock price for financial gain.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just fully like, it's not true, made it up, fake news.
Yeah.
So I remember when this happened to Opera, because I've ended up writing about that a couple times, and each time their main response was like, it's fake, and then they didn't like give any reason for why it was fake, and then they like made up something else that wasn't what the allegations were. Like the one of the things that Hindenburg Research is talking about with Opera in their report was that Opera was running apps in the Google Play Store that were giving out basically payday loans, like loans at insane rates that would have to be paid back. And one of their responses when that report came out was like, "Oh, the apps have great reviews, and they're still in the Google Play Store." It's like that you can you can manipulate that very easily.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in the Google Play Store because Google doesn't do a good enough job of checking what's in there. So, again, I didn't read the full report because a lot of it is just like stuff that only matters if you like invested in this company. So like David in the chat who's putting his life savings into Backblaze stocks. Hope that works out. But
how could it fail?
Yeah. Main takeaway for me is like, I don't know if this company's gonna stay around for a while. A little bit worried there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I really don't have much to add. I think you pretty much hit all the key points there. And truthfully, this is this feels a lot like was it 23andMe where the company started selling, or wasn't going to sell data, but people wanted to buy the company just so they could own the data. Was that 23andMe? I think it was, right?
Well, 23andMe is bankrupt, so they are in court right now being
Okay,
like,
then
someone
that's
needs
the
to
one.
buy us so we have money. Yeah.
Yeah, and the expectation is whoever's going to buy it is really just trying to get the data so they can use it for other purposes. And I kind of look at Backblaze in the same light. All of a sudden, a whole bunch of people's data is going to be vulnerable to whomever decides that they just want to snatch it. And they'll be able to snatch it for fairly cheap because, frankly, Backblaze is probably not going to stay under current management for much longer.
Yep. So that's a fun thing to worry about if you use Backblaze. Sorry, I know. I've talked a lot about eliminating things that you should be worried about because we're all worried about a lot of things right now. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Friendly PSA.
Yes, but with that, I believe that closes up our list of topics. Unless there's anything else you wanted to cover before we go.
Nope.
Okay. Well, instead of covering anything, how about you plug the article that you just posted, and then we will sign off.
Yes. I'll put this in the YouTube chat. I wrote this article went live on the space bar, just me talking about how it's kind of really important now to download everything you care about on the internet and keep it, and maybe try to archive it or re-upload it if you notice it's missing, because there's a lot of intentional destruction of information and culture happening, both as a result of the current administration and kind of just companies going crazy. So yeah, and I eventually I probably will maybe write more articles about archiving and torrenting and stuff, because it's been really fun to experiment with and try out. So yeah, you can read that and send it to people. Also, on the space bar, I'm going to hopefully switch ad providers pretty soon. So the site might actually pay for itself soon. We'll see. Because right now I've got Google AdSense on, and I think like after the tax that comes out from the income tax, it's not really paying for my hosting. So if it could do that, that'd be cool. But stay tuned.
Indeed. And then Carson asked, have I started on season 2 yet of The Last of Us? No, I haven't, but I will somewhere in the next few days. And I'll get caught up pretty quickly. To be honest, I'm sort of debating if I want to go back and rewatch season 1. I might. And if I do, I'll do what I can to blaze through that pretty fast and then get into season 2 and just go get caught up, and it'd probably take me a little over a week. And yeah, it's just been a lack of time and kind of being busy with other stuff. That being said, and Carson, you probably missed the announcement I made at the beginning of the stream, but I'm no longer with AP. So, yeah, that both frees up time and means I'm going to be a lot busier for some amount of time as I work on next plans. That being said, I'm still somewhat undecided about I'll share a little bit more in Discord. Probably not this afternoon or evening, because I am very tired and will probably be crawling into bed as soon as this stream is over. But yeah, and probably tomorrow I'll make a Discord announcement. Was I the longest tenured apart from Artem? Here's the crazy thing. Depending on how you count Artem's time there, I might have actually outlasted Artem. I'm not totally sure, but if you don't count him being there after the acquisition, it's actually possible. I don't know for sure, but I think he only had AP running for about 3 years before I joined. It might have been 4. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, and then once the acquisition went through, I stayed quite a while past that. So, yeah, I'm not sure which one of us technically spent more time there. But yeah, other than Artem, there's no question I outlasted everybody else. At least on total duration. Anyway, let's see. And there was no pizza party. That would be nice.
Pizza party.
Where
neither of us are eating pizza, but it's like a metaphorical pizza party.
Yeah. It is probably more like a ramen party these days, but we'll see. And you thought he was still managing some stuff. He's still in the Slack. But he's mostly not involved in any day-to-day operations. He's not really involved in much of anything. From what I saw, he was mostly just hanging out in the Slack to talk to the VIP room, which was basically just a place for common tipsters and a few other like fans of the site. So, yeah, he's pretty detached from it these days, from what I can see. Let's see. And then what's next? Well, I will make more announcements about that soon. But there will be some videos coming out on the YouTube channels. I'm still trying to sort out how I want to approach that. I believe I also have another place that I'm going to be doing a little bit of writing, certainly less than I was at AP, which when you think about it, wasn't much.
It's the space bar.
Yes, the space bar is going to be paying me. Right? Yeah. Right? No. But no, there's and
you get 50% of my ad income, so enjoy your 50 cents this month.
Yes, exactly. Hey, that's not much. That's not much worse than what I was making at AP. Anyway, so then there's let's see. Also, I'm pretty sure I'm going to resume working on a piece of software that I started on ages ago. I kind of had to put away because I just never had time to focus on it. And we'll see. I need to reevaluate on how far I want to, or if I want to take that project far enough. Because logically I should focus on one thing and not try to bank on two things, but at the same time, I kind of want to do both, so we'll see. Yeah, there's Revive the Movie post. Oh man, that was so much work. I have thought about that though. There is a possibility I could do that. The only thing is I'd have to go into ad revenue for that one, and honestly, it feels like that is such a scuffed direction to be going these days.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the spacebar does not make very much money with AdSense. But I know it varies a lot on the device type, what kind of ad units you're using, and the category.
Mm-hmm.
and also what ads you allow. Like on the space bar in the AdSense settings, I have turned off. It's really funny where like the worst type of ads you can imagine are very clearly labeled in AdSense of like, yeah, we know this is evil, but like, we're gonna flip it on by default. Like I think one of the settings was like, uh, oh gosh, it was like there's like categories for like alcohol, there's categories for gambling, there's categories for like software, which I think is like all those fake download buttons. So I turned off the fake download buttons and some other ones. Um, but if you care less about that, you maybe make a little bit more money. I don't know.
Yeah, I've
and
always
also
wondered
AdSense.
about that because I swear those don't seem like the companies that pay well for ads either.
Yeah, and they do. AdSense does give me a breakdown of per category, but also like my total ad clicks aren't that much, so it's not really useful data. It's sort of like a study of like 7 people.
Yeah.
I'm not getting a lot of useful information out of it. Um, but they do want me to, every once in a while, AdSense will send me email and be like, hey, you can make more money. Just turn on this ad unit. That's like the most annoying thing ever created.
Yes.
Like they've got I remember when Google like dinged websites for having interstitial ads, like ads that showed up before you could get to the page. And now Google sends me emails asking, "Can we turn this on on your site?" That and also the other really annoying thing they rolled out recently that they've asked me to enable a couple times is you may have seen this on YouTube, where in comments there will be random links showed up. Like someone will type a comment that's like, I think Iron Man and Superman should fight each other in the next Marvel movie, and like the text for Spider-Man is blue with a little magnifying icon. You tap it and it launches a Google search for Spider-Man. That's another ad format you can enable. I've not done that obviously because that's really dumb and annoying. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe a revived movie post with like carefully placed ads could do something. I don't know.
Um, I there's no doubt in my mind it could do okay. Not I wouldn't expect it to be enough to live on, but I would expect that if done correctly, with a site that's actually meant for it, that has some extra features, that is nice and browsable.
Fire up the blogger machine. We're gonna make a website.
But yeah, if done properly, I think I could do pretty well with that. Again, not enough to live on, at least not unless some other things happen on that site. But it could probably make some money. It would be a project that would be interesting, and I have a little bit of the work done towards making something like that, but it would be a lot of work, and I don't have faith that it would be sufficiently profitable, which is kind of the problem. But again, I haven't ruled it out. I very much do have thoughts about how I could go about that. Plus, I even have some number of contacts that I can use to basically get a lot of the data that would be filling that site, but that would take still a long time.
That's the kind of thing I would love to work on if I didn't have a job, or like we were living in like communist society where we don't really need to like worry about income to that extent. Because that is something I would totally mess with, like my own custom site generator for like 3 months on. That'd be really fun.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But I do have rent. So.
Yeah. Well, and I've done, I don't know how many different, I don't know that site generator is necessarily what I would call it, but I've done so many different like HTML generators, page scraping tools,
template,
like intelligent diffing tools, so to speak. Like I've done so many of those that, yeah, they're I don't want to say they're interesting or fun. That seems like overselling it, but they're it's kind of that if you want to flex the easiest side of the programming mind, those are nice ways to do it. Because you don't necessarily have to make them super performant. You don't necessarily have to make them perfect. But you do have data that's nice to work with and provides just enough challenges that you come away from it each time going, oh, yeah, okay, I didn't consider that. Or, yeah, I found the bug. Now let me go fix it. And you get to go fix a bug that takes, 5 minutes. It's nice when you have those, as opposed to the bugs that might take days to sort out and or possibly like whole rewrites to fix. Yeah, I can't count all the times that just simple things like, oh, I never anticipated that these characters would end up in a movie title, or that or that names of an actor would be formatted in this particular way. Things, simple things like that can throw you for a loop for a second, but then you figure out, oh, it's breaking because of this. Okay, cool, I'll go fix that. And then you just get to be done with it.
I'm excited for the Cody Movie Info app that has an integrated chatbot where the data is fed into GPT. You can ask it questions.
Oh, so
it's also in the Vision Pro.
No. Okay, so you jokingly mentioned chatbots. However, I have to acknowledge that the app I am building, it did not start with this as one of the potential features, but I actually do want to build a AI model for a specific function that app would have. And so I may or may not do that. I've got some ideas on how I would go about it. Because I certainly don't have all the data myself, but I'm thinking about some of the things that it could be or it could do. And I'm going to build the app first and worry about adding any sort of AI to it later. But there is an AI component that I could see being very popular and useful in it. So we'll see. That might actually be a thing. So yeah, cool. Anyway, that's I have things I'm considering. But you'll see a few different things happening. So and again, I'll share some more details on Discord. Plus obviously announcing stuff as it happens. But
watch this space.
Yes.
As the kids say.
Yes, exactly. And who knows, with some luck, I will have stories to tell of my adventures in future RambleCasts. This might slowly turn into not just a news discussion show. It might proceed more into just random discussion as time goes by. We shall see. But I just realized I did not switch views for the longest time, so we've just been sitting on your article featured image.
As it should be.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
A cool picture from NASA though.
Yeah, I had a feeling that's what it was, but I wasn't sure. I guess if I had scrolled down just like 100 more pixels, I would have seen the credit NASA and JSC.
Yeah, that's one of my cool tricks for writing articles. If you need a cool picture of like technology or space or something, NASA has this really nice image archive on their website, and because it's NASA, a lot of it is public domain or like okay for kind of like not super duper commercial stuff. So that's a cool trick for you.
Just give it time.
Oh yeah,
If Doge
yeah,
finds out about this, they will absolutely want to charge royalties.
yeah, yeah, probably. And then I'll just use AI to generate the same image.
Yes. Yes. Go use Grok.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that, let's see. Yes, and of course, if you're new to the channel, if you're just finding out about this, then subscribe. Obviously turn on notifications, all that good stuff. One day I'd like this channel to be monetized just as much as I plan on getting the other channel monetized. Yes, there are 2 channels. Different things will go to each channel. I actually am kind of working out a bit of a strategy, but I haven't decided exactly how to go about it yet. So we'll see. I'm rethinking a lot of how the channels are organized, and that's a challenge in its own ways. Yes, I know. I keep saying so much about how much I want to get those channels, both channels, active with uploads. But hey, something will have to happen soon, because I have review units coming to me that are specifically intended for the YouTube channel, and not AP. So that was a very quickly emerging thing. So yeah, that's coming somewhere in the next few weeks anyway. Yeah, there will be gadget reviews at the very least. But okay. Anyway, as I said much earlier, I am exhausted from lack of sleep, so I am going to call an end to this and wrap it up. Corbin, we already pitched the spacebar. I have already discussed all kinds of whatevers. So with that, thank you all for coming by, hanging out, and being part of the conversation. Y'all are awesome. Of course, extra special thanks to supporters of the channel: Carson, David, Diablo, Austin, and Curvy Mermaid. Y'all are doubly awesome. And of course, to anyone who would like to support the channel, there are links down below to Cash App, Streamlabs, and Patreon. Of course, any little bit helps. It is welcome. And it does aid in keeping this channel functioning. And let's see, I will be back this weekend with some game streams. For anyone who's been tracking my Overwatch progress, I'm proud to say that through a bit of sheer luck and a fluke, I have managed to clear almost the entire stadium launch heroes mission. I think nobody will know what I'm talking about, but if you do know, you know. That's a surprising feat. At least given who I play. Yeah, so I will be playing some Overwatch, probably some Rivals this weekend, and then next week we will be back with another RambleCast on Wednesday. Hopefully a little more on time. It was my fault for sure this week. I was just... lots of little things came up right before starting. But with that, I hope you all have an excellent rest of your week, a good weekend to come, and, well, hopefully just good things coming after that, because this world needs them right now. So, with that, thank you all, and good night, everybody.
Bye.